more inconsistency and retcons, poorly executed reveals, issues from the previous chapter being solved off screen, and then Nora versus Ironwood? Okay, let's go ahead and get into it. Hey, what is going on, everybody? How are you all doing today? I hope you all are having a wonderful and fantastic day today, and if not, hopefully you all will have a better tomorrow. So RWBY Volume 7, Chapter 7 is out publicly, so it's time to review the chapter and see how it all turned out. So first we see Penny, and she is being comforted by a robotic hand after being framed for murder at the rally. And here's the thing, while this footage has gotten around, Mantle and Atlas... Yeah, hey Watts, you forgot something. Where's the blood on the blades to convince the people that she may have been the one to do this? You know, the people just immediately just point the finger at her, but there's no blood on her blades. Still don't understand it. Still don't get it, but hey, whatever, right? So, due to the issues that had been happening, due to the Grim attack that apparently was taken care of off screen, don't worry about that. Because while the Grim did attack, yeah, they're kind of not here anymore, don't worry about it. But there is a curfew set up for everyone, so they have to go back to their homes during this time, of course, for the safety of the people. Yeah, still kind of a bit strange there. I mean, yeah, okay, so you had that for the safety of the people, but, that Grim attack, though. But where was that? I mean, last chapter took care of it. I mean, it's pretty bad because a lot of the issues have just been resolved off screen, off screen, just taking care of it. I mean, it's like when you had Schneeman Dad get elected into the council. But the thing of it is, you see these riots and then just taken care of off screen. No big deal. Done. And then, of course, what happens? Yet again, we are confronted with this problem. The Grim, instead of being treated like an actual threat, yet again, for about the billionth time, they are just used to say, hey, look, you attracted the Grim so bad, and then just so irrelevant that they are just taken care of off screen. It shows you how far of a threat they could have been, and then instead they were just thrown to just being completely useless for fodder. I mean, it's really bad at this point for the Grim, and it's bad to see them take care of these issues off screen. Then, of course, we see Blue Hair over here, and apparently Blue Hair's semblance is to be able to make an invisible force field around whatever this invisible bubble is put around. And then, of course, we also see Lamb Girl, and Lamb Girl's semblance is apparently to be able to suck things into, I guess, what would be a pocket dimension? Because when we see the truck, it just gets sucked up into her hand, and there's like a hole that seems like a portal, so either that's another little pocket dimension she's created, or it actually could be to the destination where they want to transport it. It's kind of interesting, actually. Also kind of makes me feel like they stole that from Obito from Naruto. Wouldn't be surprised. So, Ironwood is finding out about Robin Hill stealing these vehicles, and, it's funny because he's now talking about how he would like to just go ahead and get her arrested. Clover should have done that a few chapters ago whenever they all got threatened, but, I'm just saying, because she goes from, politician to vigilante because she's upset. That's why she's stealing the stuff, because she doesn't even know what it's being used for. Whoop-de-doo. So, of course, you have Winter, who suggests the idea of martial law, and, of course, everybody continues to dogpile on Ironwood, despite the fact that he is doing his best for everyone. And then we have Nora Scene challenging Ironwood over the idea of martial law. Now, here's the thing I'm going to say about Nora here in this situation. This is very out of character for her. Now, while Nora has in the past shown off a very hyperactive personality, and yes, she tends to blurt out things before she speaks, that has always been her characteristics, the big thing about Nora is that why is this so important of all times? I mean, that's the one thing that I really question here. Because, yes, while she is challenging Ironwood in this situation, I mean, you could say, well, the morality of it. That's why she'd be challenging it. But that's the problem, because if it comes down to the morality of the situation of challenging it because of all the people going through the bad things, well, here's the problem with that. A lot of people would go to the idea of, I have gone through this experience, I don't want people to have to suffer like I do. And what's also very strange here is the fact that just a chapter ago, Nora didn't really seem like she cared about what was going to happen with the election and Mantle. It didn't really seem like it was of grave importance. In fact, it doesn't really seem like it's been important to her at all. Maybe a couple of quotes here and there, but it's not anything of big importance to her. I mean, last chapter she was literally sucking face with Ren, so I don't really see where her priorities was lying with the future of Mantle. I mean, if anything, this really just feels like a forced push for somebody to just object on Ironwood's decision or his calls as a leader. That's really the only thing to me that this sounds like. I mean, I know we're supposed to get a Nora backstory, but the thing of it is that this should be going by Nora's experience of being in poverty, being just out homeless with nothing. You know, you would think that if that's the reason, because this should be the real reason. It should be over what she's experienced in her life because of her being alone, being poor, not having anything or anybody, until Ren, of course. That's what it should be about. And if it's not, then, well, this doesn't do anything for Nora's character, and it just feels like another jab at Ironwood because everybody's just throwing shade at Ironwood at this point. So, I hope this is not just because, oh look, it's morally right that I should object this idea. I hope that it is something that comes from her experiences, and, you know, of course, there should have been a backstory detailing this whole thing. You know, had we already known of what her backstory was, besides her meeting Ren and all that stuff happening, I mean, that would really justify this scene, but considering that this happens first, rather than a backstory that could potentially add on to this, that's a problem. I don't really like how that was done there, and I hope it doesn't come down to because it's morally right. I'd rather it be because this is what her character's gone through, and this is how she sees it. But Ironwood didn't break. I was thinking that because of everything, because everybody keeps just attacking Ironwood, going against his ideology and what he's trying to do as a leader, I thought that this would probably be his tipping point. But apparently not, and during the scene, this was literally me just thinking, if it were me in Ironwood's situation, I would have set these children straight and taught them what it's like to be a real general. Because, look at it like this, Ironwood, you want to talk about somebody having problems and going through issues, you know, the people suffering. This is the man who is trying to lead Atlas to a better future. This is the man that is trying to make sure that the materials are used for the right reasons. This is the man trying to set everything straight and make everything better after the fall of Beacon and the CCTs going down. This is what he is trying to do, to try to benefit everything. And then, of course, he's gone so far as to try to show that they can trust him. And he even gave them their certified hunter's license to all of them, including Nora. And so Nora, who clearly on her resume has certified general and leader of a country on it, is telling and shaming Ironwood over his decision making. Come on, Nora. I'm sorry. I'm not going to let you get away with that one. At the same time, at this point, she's just in the same boat as RWBY because RWBY sits over here and continues to lie and keep secrets from Ironwood. I mean, at this given point, if Atlas falls, it's going to be their fault because they hid the truth. That's basically what's going to happen. And then, when it comes to Ren, Ren seems to be the sensible one and actually is deciding to just follow what Ironwood's deciding to do. But the only problem with this is that it seems like they're just trying to force drama on Nora and Ren because they just got together and, of course, we got to make a conflict. I mean, Ren seems to be the sensible one in this entire situation, and Ren, great guy, great guy. But in terms of Ironwood, it seems like just everybody's against the man. I mean, you have the people of Mantle thinking that he is just doing more harm than good. You have the council who's trying to kick him out, which, who cares about politics? Good God, I can't stress that enough. And then you have RWBY's group, who is just trying and prying to find a reason to just not trust Ironwood. I mean, this would have been the perfect moment to snap on them, but if he had done so, then this would be the reason to say, oh, well, he's mentally insane, we can't trust him, he's a bad person, bad guy. When in fact, Ironwood has just done everything he possibly can to prove to them that they can trust him. I mean, he's given them so much. This is why I'm actually really enjoying Ironwood as a character. This is why I really like a lot of the characters outside of the protagonist group that is RWBY's group. Because while everybody else seems pretty logical, you have RWBY's group who seems like their plans are half-baked and just terrible in terms of decision-making. Like RWBY lying to Ironwood. You know, not gonna let that go till she says something about it, but I'm just saying. And next, RWBY and Weiss go to check on Penny as her site is being downloaded so they can try to prove Penny's innocence. Thing is, you have Papa Geppetto over here, and he starts to talk about how Penny was created. So it's a pretty easy thing to think about, how basically just Atlas needed a defense bot, and so it seems that good old Geppetto over here, he just thought of the idea of, hey, look, let's go ahead and create a bot that it can generate aura. And so, of course, with that, him and a few scientists had come up with the idea to create Penny. And thus, it takes his own aura to be able to, well, create Penny and her to generate aura. Thing of this is that, you know, she was the first synthetic being to generate aura. But the way they tried to display this is, aura is apparently one's life force, and if it gets depleted, then you die. Another retcon here, because let me explain something. An aura was known as the force field. You know, Monty's whole plan for aura was so that he could linger out battles, and then, of course, their force field would go down, and then they could be killed by a severe blow or lose an arm or leg or whatever at that point, right? So here's the thing that doesn't make sense. A character's aura is known to regenerate, because when their aura breaks, they're still alive. They are not killed, right? So what doesn't make sense to me here is that while good old Geppetto over here, he's trying to state that every time he gives up his aura for Penny to come back, it's killing him. How does that make any sense when aura can regenerate? That doesn't make any sense to me. It's supposed to be a force field. And that means that every single time that we've seen a character generate aura and it breaks, they should have been dead then. Every single time it broke. That doesn't make any sense. Also, if you notice, when Pietro is telling them this story, everybody's smiling. RWBY, Weiss, Maria, they are all smiling when he tells them that each time that he is regenerating Penny, that he's dying. What is going through their minds? I mean, at this point, I'm just kind of thinking, was Nepgia going through their minds and they were just immediately coming to the conclusion of smiles? I mean, was that going through their heads? I don't understand this. The man is literally trying to say that he's killing himself every time he's bringing Penny back. And then it's like you just have them smiling. And then, of course, while he's explaining this, I mean, just RWBY smiled at one point because she knew that Penny could just come back off of his aura. That Penny, even though the fact that she can just die, she can just come back through Pietro's aura. So she just smiles. Hashtag sadistic smiling RWBY, because apparently she just sadistically just thinks, oh, well, Penny's coming back at the death of an old man. All right. But all jokes aside, in all seriousness, though, with Pietro, here is the big problem with this reveal, by the way. So, of course, when Pietro's talking about the backstory of all the scientists, and whenever he puts the picture back down, you see that Watts is amongst them. This was one of the worst reveals I think that I've ever seen for a character that worked alongside Pietro on this project. I mean, there could have been a better way of doing this, and instead, they reveal it through this photo. I mean, this is one of the most cringeworthy ways that I've ever seen a reveal like this. I mean, here's the big thing also, is that while he's holding the picture, his thumb is literally over Watts' face. I mean, they really just, I don't know what they were thinking when they were coming up with the idea for Watts being revealed here, because this was poorly executed. What I don't understand is why RWBY hasn't at least tried to do a backstory on that, and then they could have revealed Watts working with them that way. I think it would have been a lot better. Not only that, but it seems like RWBY is just afraid to go into backstories. One of the best things that I think that they ever did, which was back in Volume 3, was showing Cinder's plot of how she planned the fall of Beacon, how she collected the White Fang as well as Emerald Mercury, how she had to get the Maiden powers to convince Adam and the White Fang to join her. I mean, there was a lot of good things that came out of that, and that was a good backstory. I think that that was something that they did very well at establishing, and it set up everything for Beacon's fall, which really put everything together there. And then, I mean, even so, Volume 2 still had Yang's backstory of her trying to find her mother. That's another thing that they've done, that while it was more of a 2D-ish kind of paint style showing the backstory of Yang there, I mean, it's still good. I mean, I still like that idea of her trying to find her mother and them actually showing a backstory. That's one of the biggest problems for RWBY is show, don't tell. You know, and it's like RWBY is just afraid. It's like the writers are terrified to try to go into backstories. And that's one of the biggest problems that I've ever had with RWBY and still continue to this very day. While they tell you of these things, I mean, that's great and all, but we need to see them. It's better to also see, not just hear. And that's another very important and vital thing here that I feel like the writers need to understand. The audience doesn't need to just hear the backstory, they need to see it. And this is one problem that RWBY has had for a very long time. While in the past it has shown backstories, as of later volumes, it tends to just avoid showing the backstory for the most part. And they need to go more into it rather than avoid it and walk away from it. And now, Ironwood, he does go on to talk about how they can't use the Staff of Creation to make Amenity Arena float, so they're going to go the old-fashioned way, and they're going to make it fly with dust. Now, here's the retcon. It was established back in World of Remnant in Volume 3 that dust cannot be used outside of Remnant. So, here is the retcon, an inconsistency, and they're going to use dust. It does not make sense to me, and I do not like this. But the one thing that was very interesting was Oscar and how, while he actually was talking to Ironwood, how, yes, he was a critic of Ironwood's opinions, considering that Ironwood is trying to show more trust. If you go back to Volume 3, Ironwood was one to more so trust himself. But it seems that after the fall of Beacon, he has been trying to trust others. And what I like about this is where Oscar is saying that, you know, it never hurts to have decisions also be made by other people to help you out. You know, that's not a bad thing either. And I found that to be a very interesting take on what Oscar was going about here, considering that everybody's just trying to pry and figure out ways to try to distrust Ironwood. Yeah, well, it was good on Oscar's take and the way that he went about it. And for Ironwood to face his fears. Not only that, but the lore dump here was not so bad. The reason why I say that is because Ironwood is trying to actually inform Osmond. It's really more so to try to get someone that he trusts back, instead of just saying, hey audience, here's the information. No, this was actually a way to do that. It's just the only problem is that we just didn't get a backstory to it that we got to actually see, not just hear. You know, we didn't get to actually see it, and that's the problem. And then, of course, Blake and Yang have a scene. And here's what I'm going to say about this, considering that pretty much every single moment in Volume 7 has been nothing more than just Blake and Yang being together. I mean, it's like whenever we see these two have scenes, they're glued to the hip, and it's very frustrating. It's so forced, and you can just tell that it is. But surprisingly enough, they actually had a conversation. I know, I'm as surprised as you are. I am shocked. But what this led them to do while they were on their mission, because their mission was to capture Robin, they decided to talk about whether it was right or not to hide information from Ironwood. And here's what I'll say. While Blake continues to just go ahead and just be against Ironwood, the thing of it is, I'll at least give Yang credit, because it seems like Yang isn't just stealing that hive mind mentality the characters typically have with one another. The good thing about Yang is that she's actually thinking for herself, which is one thing that many of the characters have a problem with, is rather than thinking for themselves, a lot of them just go ahead and decide to, well, rather than thinking for themselves, they just all align together with one hive mind thought. And then, of course, Robin checks the truck, which I don't understand. Why did she have to check the truck when the first truck that we saw her take just wasn't checked at all? I don't understand that. I really don't get why that happened, but whatever. I mean, I guess just for the convenience of Blake and Yang being caught and trying to catch Robin. But, of course, at least when it comes down to it, at least Yang has tried to have her own opinions here because, like I said, many of the characters just don't, and they just continue to do the same thing over and over again and just think the same thoughts. But one of the biggest problems with RWBY is that it seems like whenever a character does have a difference with one another, they just have to try to force drama, just try to cause drama because, oh no, can't have different opinions. So it's like they just do that. Now, when it comes to Robin as well here with the situation of them, I wanted to talk about her semblance a little bit because some of the semblances we did see, which I mentioned the other two earlier, Robin's is, well, it's nothing more than a lie detector. I mean, it's like, oh, let me have your hand. Okay. And then, are you telling the truth? Sure. Or not. I mean, the semblance, I mean, it would be better, I think, if, I don't know, maybe she made eye contact with somebody, or if somebody looked into her eyes, then it would trigger, and then she would ask them a question that can initiate whether they're telling the truth or not. I don't know, something along the lines of that, rather than something like this, but it just, something like this, I don't know. I mean, I think that Robin Hill could have had a better semblance. Then again, she's based off of Robin Hood, and her plot could have been a lot better, like stealing from the Schnee Manor and giving to the poor. I think that would have been a lot better than reenacting the 2016 election. Nobody cares about that. I mean, seriously. And speaking of politics, because, oh man, Rooster Teeth cannot stop getting their politics train inside of RWBY. Yeah, then Ironwood is invited by Jacques to the Schnee Manor for a dinner. Oh boy. Well, if I had to give this chapter rating, it'd be a 5.5 because when it comes to certain things could have been done a lot better. It seems like everybody is just against Ironwood. It's like, for the most part, you have Mantle. I mean, look at Mantle. They think Ironwood's a bad guy. You have Jacques and then the Council and how they're trying to get him out of there. And then, of course, it's like Team RWBY is just trying to find whatever they can to just distrust Ironwood, and I just can't stand it. Then again, you have Blake, who is still constantly against Ironwood. Now you have Nora, who is trying to contest against Ironwood. I swear, if I hear another character try to just throw shade at Ironwood over his decision making, despite the fact that they aren't in his position. They don't lead a country. They are not a general of an army. And yet they are constantly telling him what to do whenever it's like, hey, look, we don't have the experience you do, but we know better than you. I mean, it's getting really old and really obnoxious fast. And then RWBY, continuing to still keep secrets. I mean, that's... But, yeah. Not only that, but issues being resolved off screen doesn't help anything. That is one problem that I have with this chapter as well, because, you have the Grim swoop down at the end of the last chapter, but then that issue is just taken care of so very easily, it's like it was nothing. Yet again, proving that the Grim just aren't a threat. That's terrible. I mean, like, the past, 2 chapters, we have just seen, basically, the issue just be resolved off screen. And that's not how you handle that. You handle it on screen. As well as show don't tell, the big problem with that is that, well, the audience is more engaged when they see the backstory rather than just hearing it. I mean, it adds more weight when you're seeing the backstory and seeing it play out. And also seeing it shows you more. I mean, that's the whole point of show don't tell. But it's showing you things. And that's one thing that telling doesn't do as opposed to also showing. And that's the problem. They need to show more of the backstory to have the audience feel more engaged. I mean, the good part was trying to have Ironwood actually get Ozpin to come out by not just telling Ozpin and Oscar of how the whole staff of creation works, but at the same time, it also informs the audience of how it works. So that was pretty well, and I don't disagree with how that was done, because instead of it just feeling like it was an expo dump, it actually just felt genuine, and there was a reason for why Ironwood was doing it, so that was a good thing. And seeing Yang actually have a different opinion than Blake, and their conversation actually feeling a little more human, was refreshing, rather than seeing every single member of RWBY's group just having a hive mind and just sharing the same opinion. At least there was that, but we need to see more of that, not just one little scene. I mean, we do need to continue to see more of that. And when it comes to the retcon of Dust and also Aura, and instead of adding to canon, they just try to reset it and throw it out there and redo it. I mean, it's just really irritating because, it's like studying the canon. What's the point if they're just going to rewrite it all over again? So that's why I give this chapter a 5.5 out of 10, because it was just meh. It could have been better. I mean, it just was just a bland chapter that was just meh for the most part. But anyways, I'll be back again on Tuesday. Thank you all for watching, and let me know what you think about this entire chapter down below. And if you're new here, subscribe, hit the video with a like if you enjoyed, share the video if you found this informative or useful, and follow me on Discord. Link is in the description down below. But anyways, I hope you all have yourselves a wonderful and fantastic day today, and remember, if today was not a good day, tomorrow could always be better. Take care of yourselves and everyone around you, and have yourselves a good one out there, everybody.